I'm not sure I'm fully understanding what you're getting at.
What does the best candidate look like? The best FSO officer, we'll use that, the best foreign service officer.
I would say the best for the particular job can look like any one of us, and that is the American way. That's what we support.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
what he's saying makes perfect sense.
I'm just going to start by responding to my colleague, who's somebody that I thank. I thank you for your service. If I can speak to you directly, I thank you for your service. Very proud to call you a brother in arms. But as I observe our units, we both served in diverse units in the military, but it was never by demand. And that is the argument that I'm bringing up here as we talk about service in the State Department or the military or anywhere else. There are no quotas over qualification. We didn't need an African American or an Asian or a white sniper or bomb tech or canine handler. It was just simply who raised their hand, volunteered, proved that they had what they needed to make it and be effective in that role, and pursued it and reached their goal. That's what it was all about. And to give the appearance at any time that it is anything other than that, that is un-American, and that is the problem I have with the appearance that this office is giving. I'll ask a couple of questions here. Is baldness, somebody that looks like me, does that make you a better diplomat, ma'am? I think I know the answer, but.
Not that I know of.
It doesn't. If somebody's 5'8" like me or 6'3" like somebody else, does it make them a better diplomat?
No, I do not believe so.
He's making some good points. To me, I'm just a little confused because every time I hear this topic, maybe I'm just too young, but my question is, why is diversity being required in certain combat in the military? Why do you need, like you said, why do you need a sniper who's a specific color or a soldier who is a specific color? It just, to me, it really confuses me a lot why these requirements even exist. But let's continue this.
Likewise, does being white make somebody a better diplomat?
No, I do not believe so.
African American?
No, I do not believe so.
Asian or Islander?
Any specific group?
Native American? It doesn't. I would ask this. Can you tell me, am I white?
I would allow you to tell me how you characterize yourself.
What?
That's exactly right. I would have to tell you not just how I characterize myself, but what I am. But I'm asking, do you know if I'm white?
I do not know.
Half black?
I do not know.
Asian, Islander?
Do not know.
Brown? Latino?
I do not know.
You can't know. You can't know without asking somebody to disclose what they are. And we can't ask what somebody is, and it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter that I'm half Mexican. It shouldn't matter whether I'm able-bodied or ambulatory or not ambulatory. That doesn't have anything to do with what my background is, that I served in these operations in the military, that I gained these skills, that I studied this in school, that I...
Yeah, that just sounds like common sense to me. Shouldn't it be obvious you should want the most qualified person to do any job? It should not matter what skin color they are. It should not matter what they look like. That is, by definition, discrimination. Only thing that should matter is, how good are you at this job? Did you earn this job? You did? Okay, let's go from there. I'm confused on why we're even still having these type of discussions. Why this topic is so complicated for some people to get.
I proved that I could pass whatever tests under stress and duress and be effective in the field under situations that foreign service officers might encounter, like the withdrawal of Afghanistan, the enemy at the gates, people being targeted, trying to deal with countless number of SIVs coming in. That has nothing to do with how somebody looks. It has to do with, did they volunteer to do this? Do they have the skills to do this? Did we test them to make sure they had the skills to do this? Do we hire hard and have the ability to manage a little bit easier? And that's the problem with what I see with what's taking place here. I'd ask you another question. Can you tell me what best looks like?
I'm not sure I'm fully understanding what you're getting at.
What does the best candidate look like?
Yeah.
The best FSO officer, we'll use that, the best foreign service officer. What does the best look like?
I would say the best for the particular job can look like any one of us, and that is the American way. That's what we support.
Yes, ma'am. So in that,
Yes.
we can't have it be that first we look for a diverse basket of candidates, as is your quote, and then after we look for the diverse basket, then we check the merit of that. The diversity can't be the number one. I want a diverse workforce. I'm glad that I served with a diverse force in the military, diverse colleagues as members of Congress. But that can't be the number one filter, because it does create an inherent bias, an inherent quota system, where people look at it and say, well, I wasn't this. I didn't have the right religion or color or what they were looking for. So I didn't make that diverse basket number one, as you said, that it has to be that. They better bring you a diverse panel. My time is
Yeah, what he's saying makes perfect sense, because if you were to add diversity as a requirement, it adds an unnecessary obstacle and discriminatory factor when deciding for a job. And to me, to anyone who has common sense, it's just wrong. Why are you picking me for a job because I'm black? Why aren't you picking me for a job because I'm black? It's wrong no matter how you look at it.
expired. In that, I now recognize Ranking Member Crow for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with the Chairman that it shouldn't matter what you look like, that it shouldn't matter if you're bald or 5'8" or 5'9" or black or white, or it shouldn't. But in the United States of America, too often it does. That's just the reality, right? And our history doesn't really have a big history of systematic discrimination against bald people or people that are 5'8". But it does against people of color. That is just the truth. All of this is about reducing those barriers. It's not about favoring one side or the other. It's about recognizing our history, recognizing that all things have not been equal, recognizing, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, that we do not exist in a perfect situation where what you outlined is true, because it's not.
This kind of reminds me of the phrase, the sins of the father fall upon the son. And the reason I bring that up is because when Mr. Crow is talking about unfair or unjust treatment within the United States for black people, he's using past tense. And the reason why that's important is because he's basically implying that since America has a history of racism or has a history of discrimination, we're making up for that now. The reason why I think that's a problem is because if you're basing diversity hiring, and I'm going off of what he's saying, if you're basing diversity hiring or diversity quotas based off of past obstacles in the country, you are literally punishing an entire new generation of people. And that's why I feel is a problem. It would be different if what he was saying was a problem involving modern times, where he was saying we have discrimination now, we have problems now in the country, and we need to solve them now, and we're going to solve this by having diversity quotas or by having requirements based off of race. That's a very respectable answer. But if you're only having this based off of things that happened previously, and he didn't necessarily say a specific date that was previous, so that could be debated there. But if you're saying, well, this happened in the past, we have a history of this, and because of that history, now we're going to fix it today. That is not right. You are hurting an entire generation of people who had nothing to do with that. Also, it's kind of strange because if you say that was the history, how do you know that it's still affecting me today? It could very well not be affecting me at all. But not only are you involving this, but you're also creating a weird racial tension because you have a group of minorities, which you're talking about, who may or may not be experiencing problems, but you're still giving them the leg up anyways. And you have a group of non-minorities who did not cause the problems, according to what you're saying, since it is in past tense, and they're having to pay the price of maybe their ancestors, maybe not. They're having to pay the price of people who weren't even around when they were here. So, no, I don't think it's right based off of what I'm hearing. Hopefully, they can talk about this a little more so I can know a little more about why they're doing this diversity requirements.
In that not everybody has access. And if we are going to be our best, then we have to have a level playing field, and we have to provide everybody with access.
Okay.
And then, if that level playing field exists and everybody has access, then we can find the best. But we can't do that right now. And that is the charge of these efforts. So in that vein, Ambassador, I'd like you to just explain very briefly some of the changes that I believe have been unfairly characterized to the change in the Foreign Service Officer test in the hiring process. Because some people will say that it used to be the case that applicants just had to go through the Foreign Service Officer test, and then they would pass that gate, and then look at other criteria. But now we've actually broadened the aperture, is my understanding. We look at more factors, which actually increases the pool of applicants, which seems like a good thing to me. Is that accurate? And can you describe that for us, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. And if I may respond to the chairman's comments as well, that is exactly what has happened. We have broadened the aperture to allow more Americans to have access to the ability to serve, which is really what we want. I think it's really important that we keep in mind that how one gets into the Foreign Service has changed multiple times over years. This is not the first change. Throughout all of these changes, we need to keep in mind the reality is that there are many people already in the Department of State before this latest change who never took the written exam, never took it, but are not questioned about it because people assume that they have. We have a number of fellowship programs, including Presidential Management Fellows, Boren Fellows, AAAS Fellows, mid-level program that allows people to come into the Foreign Service over time. No one touched the written exam to become a Foreign Service officer, and these people have had successful careers as Foreign Service officers. So the written test has never been the be-all, end-all of who is going to be a successful diplomat.
Okay, I get what she's saying about the written test and people having successful careers without taking it. I would say this. If there is a requirement, I don't think it's for the best interest of said company or said department to ignore this requirement through the use of analogies of people who have not taken this requirement and still become successful, because you have to be moving within the best faith and interest of your department and company. If you're saying that, well, other people have had successful careers without taking this requirement, so what I'm doing won't hurt the industry. Okay, if that may be true, that may not be true, but your objective should be to remove this requirement completely if you do think it is not mandatory or you think it's not necessary. If you think it's not necessary, that's a completely different discussion. However, from what I'm getting from this conversation, you're trying to remove it for minorities. That's not right. If it was really unnecessary, your objective should be, okay, we obviously don't need this. Evidence shows that we don't need this. But what I think is, You're just using examples of people who have become successful without having this written requirement, and you're trying to justify their successful careers to a group of minorities that you want to sweeten the deal for. I don't necessarily think that makes sense. You should just remove the test altogether if it's really not necessary. But if it is necessary, what you're doing is not doing what I think. But I would say I don't understand completely exactly what she's talking about. So let's go further.
A former boss of mine contacted me last week, talked about his incoming class and how he had to take the Foreign Service written exam a few times before coming in, and his roommate passed it on the first try, but mustered out within 2 years of joining the Department of State. One of the barrier analysis we may need to do is who comes in which way and what their careers look like. Some of the barrier analyses that we're doing are going to follow career paths over time to see, are there barriers to success in the Foreign Service based on demographics. But how you come in may be something we should look at so that we can answer the question for those who have concerns that the change in the Foreign Service written test may lower our standards. But again, already many people have come in without taking that test. I've heard no questions about them. Thank you.
Thank you for that. My time is expired.
Yeah. So, yeah, if many people have come in taking the test, you should be trying to remove the test if you really think it's necessary. You definitely need to run tests on it, analysis on it to see, like, okay, is this test mandatory or not? But this is kind of weird that you want to remove the test under the objective of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's really strange to me. It's really, really strange to me because if this is a diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation, and now you talking about removing the test, that to me shows that you want to remove it because Black people are taking it and they're not passing it, or maybe minorities are taking it and they're not passing it. I'm not a fan of that at all, but I'm not going to speak too soon. If you have any suggestions for me, comment down below. LFR Jojo, I'll see you later.